last week we ended around Exodus 9 and 10, and we were kind of talking about how Yah could have just took Egypt out and brought Israel out after the first two plagues, but it's by his grace and his mercy that he extended this long procession of 10 plagues, right? And people might think, oh, he's toying with the Egyptians, when really all of this was grace, all of this was mercy. And so and I was saying that because I was been reading Revelations, and how Revelations is literally just a retelling, not a retelling, but it's literally what happened in Exodus, but for future, for us to understand like the future, that all these different plagues are coming. And like in Exodus, Pharaoh's heart stayed hardened, his officials' heart stayed hardened. They still kept changing their mind. They're saying, oh, we sinned, oh, we messed up, but they still didn't really want to serve Yah. And then in Revelations, it talks about how Yah's pouring out the seals and blowing the trumpets, and like a third of the people fell, and all this stuff is happening to the earth. But it said, but the people still didn't repent. The people still didn't stop serving their idols and their idolatries and their fornications. Like they still didn't stop. And it's just like, that's what's going on and what we're reading now in Exodus. And it's so prophetic for us to understand what happened in the first Exodus with Israel, because we know that Yah is walking us in the second Exodus, or AKA Revelations. And so getting our mindset and understand that we are living in prophecy, and that reading Exodus, knowing how Yah took our ancestors out of Egypt this first go round, is going to be similar to how he's going to take us up out of Babylon this go round. So reading this with that understanding, and then when if Yah puts it on your heart as we're going through Exodus, for you to go and read Revelations, so we can kind of see, oh, a seal has came, it comes with a plague. Oh, another seal, oh, another plague. And it's just like, where else have we seen multiple plagues come forth to beat down on a nation and get them to repent, and to see that they're under judgment and they can have salvation, but you have to remove yourself from Egypt, just like we have to remove ourselves from Babylon. I'm gonna read the chat. I see Nat posted something. I can't really see it right now. My screen's kind of low.
I can read it. It says, "And the mixed multitude with us, grafted ancestors, just like the first time."
Exactly. Yes. So we came out with a mixed multitude back then, and we're coming out with a mixed multitude again. And so again, there's nothing new under the sun. Yah doesn't change. His salvation, his deliverance has been made available for all nations all the time. And so with that being said, I want to pick us back up at Exodus 9, because I want to talk about the hail again. So like the hail and the stuff that was falling from the sky in Exodus 9. We talked about this last week, but it's like, this was the one plague where Yah told them in advance, hey, you stay in the house, you're good. If you listen to this word and you bring your servants and then your livestock inside, when I send this plague of hail, you won't have to die. Your servants won't die. Your livestock won't die. Now, mind you, it's been multiple plagues since this one. They know Yah's not bluffing. They know Yahuwah is not playing with them, but still, because of the hardness of their heart, because they still probably had a lot of prosperity and they looked successful, they decided to try Yah again, and being like, we're gonna leave our stuff outside. Okay, he sends the hail. People who listened, they was good. People who didn't, they lost their lives, they lost their livestock. And it's just at this point we really get to see what it looks like when someone has a hardened heart or a reprobate mind. And I know we talk about that a lot. We say that, we throw that word around a lot, like reprobate mind, hardened heart. But a lot of us have not really experienced that in person yet with the people around us. And I want us to really meditate on this, because we know we're in the second Exodus. We know that we're in the last days. We know that Timothy said that the hearts of men are going to wax colder and colder. There's going to be a lack of love, a lack of trusting Yah, that people won't heed sound doctrine. And I don't believe, I'm not going to say that you haven't, I don't know everyone's life, right? But to the extent of a whole community, a whole nation, literally being so hardened, even as the judgment is hitting America, even as the judgment is hitting all the nations around the world, as this judgment is hitting, and it's heavy upon the people, there is still a hatred for Yah. There is still a hatred for Yah's people, even as all the revelations are coming out and they know that they're under judgment, but they want to ignore it. We talked about how Taryn brought up how, like, how can you ignore? How can you ignore the fact that frogs coming up in your house? And how can you ignore the fact that lice is coming off all in the palace? Like, you're choosing to ignore the fact that your judgment has arrived. And we think, as we're reading Exodus, I know growing up reading, it's like, that's crazy. How could they? But y'all's like, you're about to see it. You're already starting to see it. That people have chosen blindness, and in their choosing blindness, they have chosen judgment and death. And so in this season, asking Yah to continually strengthen our hearts and our minds. As one, we grow closer to him, and he prunes us and he refines us and he strengthens us in his spirit, but to also strengthen our heart for when we start to see the place go up like Sodom and Gomorrah. And he's like, don't turn around. Don't turn around. It's not that you lack compassion. It's not that you lack love for people or even this nation. It's that you are in covenant with Yah's nation. You are in covenant with Yahuwah, with Israel. And you cannot have split loyalties. And if you have split loyalties, it'll cause you to turn around like Lot's wife. And so with that being said, I want to talk about another mercy point that Yah had. If we go to chapter 9, verse 32, talking about the hail, and this, or actually 31, it says, the flax and the barley were destroyed, since the barley had headed and the flax was in bloom. So it's giving us a time period. So if the flax and the barley was in bloom, it means that it was like winter, very like end of winter, early spring, right? To give us time period. But then it says, then Yah had the wisdom to let us know, but the wheat and the spelt were not destroyed because they ripened later. When do you think spelt and wheat ripen? In spring, during Passover. So we're getting a timeline of like how these plagues are coming about, but also Yah saying, I could have took out everything with this hail, but in my mercy, I'm going to leave you some wheat and some spelt. I didn't have to. I could have destroyed all of your food production, everything that you need to make some kind of bread or some kind of grain. I could have got rid of all of it when I rained down hail on Egypt. But in my mercy, I'm still going to leave some wheat and some spelt. In the case that you change your mind and you humble yourself. But Pharaoh was like, he couldn't even see that. He was like, nope. You know, he entreated Moses to come. You know, he confessed that he sinned, and that he even confessed, right? So I think this goes again for our discernment. Just because someone knows that they sinned and they're confessing, like, oh, I sinned, Yah, forgive me. You know, Yahuwah is righteous, his ways are good, and I've been wicked. You know, we have that scripture, as long as you confess with your mouth, you know, that, you know, Yahushua HaMashiach has died. Like, we use that as a way of saying, like, just because someone confesses Yahushua, or, you know, in the world, Jesus, if they can, just because they say that they're good. This is an example of saying someone can say something with their mouth and not really be about it in their heart. And that's where discernment comes in, your actions, what you do after you confess. You confess all day till you blue in the face that you believe. Pharaoh has said this multiple times. Pharaoh has known, he has confessed, he knows that Yah's righteous, that he's been wicked. He knows that he's sinned. But when things seemed like they calmed down, he reverted right back to his vomit. And so, but Moses, you know, tells Pharaoh that all this is happening so that you can know that it is, so you may know that the earth belongs to Yah. Like, all of this is going on so that you can know that the earth belongs to Yah. I don't know what you thought. What kind of power your little demigods or your little mini Elohims had, but the earth belongs to Yah. And then he said, I caught on now. I know you, Pharaoh, and I know your officials don't fear Yah. I know you said all that. I know you said, you know, you sinned, and you know that Yah is righteous and that you wicked, but I know that you don't fear Yah. You can know you sinning, you can know you wicked, but that can still be without the fear of Yah. You have no wisdom still because you don't fear him. And so Moses at the point, like, you is a fool. you're foolish. You're saying all this stuff. I don't believe you. You don't fear Yah, because now the next plague gonna fall, because clearly you didn't learn. And so Exodus 10, 1 through 20, it goes over the locusts. And so we kind of talked about this last night. And now the Egyptians are just like, okay, this is enough, because the locusts have covered the place where it's like a cloud of darkness. That's how thick all these locusts have come out. And they about to tear up they literally ate everything, the fruit of the trees, the felt, the wheat that was left, the spelt that was left over, all of it is consumed by the locusts. Because you think Yah's plan, he's like, how much heavier does my hand have to be? How much more mercy? Like at this point, we know that Pharaoh is the epitome of spitting in Yah's face, right? And at this point, it's not even about Pharaoh anymore. It's about everybody else around him. It's about the people, like we talked about. It's about the Egyptians who grew up there, who need to realize that the system that they bow down to is false. And so for us in this season, Yah is going to be sending more of these plagues and more of this pressure and more of the dismantling of America and all the other nations that have like drunk from the cup of Babylon, that he's not playing. But as it gets worse, it's not it. But as it gets worse, this is the time and opportunity for the rest of the world to see that something ain't right. Clearly, the system that we've been serving, clearly the system that we've trusted in, clearly the Christian church and all the religious structures have failed us. They're not under the mercy of Yah. They're under Yah's judgment. It's for time for them to wake up out of their delusion. That's why the plagues are extended. That's why Revelation has so many seals and so many pouring out and so many angels declaring all these different things about to befall the earth. It's so that the rest of the earth, the rest of the inhabitants of the earth can see, oh snap, something has, I'm clearly not serving the one who rules the earth. I've clearly gotten it wrong. It's so that Yah desires no man or woman to perish. He wants all men to be saved. So when we read Exodus, like, dang, there's a lot of places why he just didn't. We read Revelations, when you see all the seals opening, why didn't Yah just finish it up? Why is this long drawn out? That's his mercy. And if we can't see Yah's character and why there's so many plagues and why there's so many seals and revelations, you're missing the fact that Yah has always been merciful and he's always given people time and opportunity. The spirit of Babylon don't care if you live or die, but Yah's spirit is like, come out of Babylon so you won't receive of her plagues.
Sis, I think about like out of all the plagues or even the seals type of thing. So for like one, say if you take my family, I think because like everybody's pretty much workers, like we will figure that part out. The thing that hit home with me was health, right? Like because we're educated, we can get a job, we can, do all of these things. We've always seen our, grandparents work, that sort of stuff. But it got real with my husband's heart attack, right? Like all this stuff, face forward, like let's figure this thing out, like no kidding. But if you take different things like that metaphorically, maybe it's the loss of a job, and that's like the thing to the family. So the locust, maybe it wasn't the locust, but maybe the water supply, when it was talking about, the first plague with the water turning and that being bitter, that opened up somebody's eyes. Every little thing that happened, it probably impacted different people, a certain type of way. In Pharaoh's case, he royal, so everybody cleaning that stuff up anyway. He ain't getting in no bed full of bugs. Somebody going before him cleaning that stuff up. He ain't, sweeping it up or whatever. But you had the outside people who went to go work in the field. And then when they said everything, those certain plagues start coming inside the house, the mites, the all that stuff or whatever. So every nook and cranny, you open the cabinets, whatever, all of that. So each time those things are representation of, like, maybe you're not bothered by a liar, but maybe you bothered by a stealer. Maybe you're not bothered by abuse, but maybe you bothered by people who don't work. I mean, to bring it like, thinking about it from, what's your deal breaker? What's the thing? So you're talking about grace and mercy, but maybe you desensitized to this over here because that'll never happen to me. I ain't out there doing all that stuff. But then the random act, right? you know, it could hit a little different. So he's still giving you a chance based on your capacity to kind of see the situation. I mean, that's just how I kind of was breaking it down. Because I could say like I don't expose my family to this, that, and the other, but I still got stuff that I need to, you know, kind of pull that string in the back to make me, you know, and that was a catalyst for me to kind of straighten up some stuff and seek a deeper relationship in things, me personally.
Gina mentioned about the plague of 2020 and how that was like a shaking for everybody because everything got shut down, right? People try to debate and say like, oh, well, they created it. Y'all allowed it. At the end of the day, y'all allowed it. There's too much things about like, oh, these different poles that create tornadoes and like, y'all allowed it. Y'all is allowing it. At the end of the day, y'all allows it. Why does he allow it? Okay, maybe you don't believe in the Most High Yah at this moment, but the fact that all this stuff is happening, you got to make a change. Something's got to change because clearly you have no control over what your government is doing. Oh, the Americans are just disregarding the Constitution. They're taking away rights. You put your trust in Egypt. You put your trust in America. Something gonna have to give. Something has to change. Who you put your trust in now? You know, Yah woke me up in 2016, 17, but I didn't surrender my life until 2020. Right, like right before the pandemic hit, like I gave my life over to Yah fully, right? And then a few months later, everything got shut down. And I was like, dang, this ain't about happenstance. And to talk to different brothers and sisters all over the world to be like 2020 was a transitional moment for a lot of people. And for us to stop thinking about it so carnally, but spiritually, Yah was doing a thing in the earth. And people try to diminish it by saying, oh, well, they concocted this. Like, yeah, they did. They probably did. But Yah is going to allow it. And your response to that should be surrender to Yah. To be get in Goshen. Okay, because it's not going to get any better. That might have been, that was the first shaking of this nation. And nothing has been the same since. You cannot ignore that. Right? People tried to ignore COVID, right? By, oh, I'm gonna get the vaccine, everything's gonna go back to normal. All right, you got it. They still took away rights. People lost their jobs for fighting, you know, for their bodily rights of not having to get an injection, right? Maybe you faltered and you did get the injection. Okay, 5 years later, now the documents are coming out that those injections are hurting people, and that those injections are causing blood. Like it just keeps snowballing. It just keeps rolling, and it's not by happenstance. Yah is shifting. What is it? The end of Esau, but like the Jacob is the beginning of this new thing. It's happening, and the whole world is shaking. It says the whole earth like travails for the revelation of the children of Yah. And so that's what I'm saying. Exodus, if you read Exodus, you need to go back and read Revelation. I'm just saying, because you're gonna see it and you're not gonna read it, you're not gonna be scared anymore reading it, because Exodus is a love story. Exodus is I'm coming for my babies. I'm ransoming them. So is Revelations. So yeah, I just want to say that part. But okay, back to the locusts. Back to the locusts. And the imagery on this is just it was so crazy. It was like, it was just like the imagery of using like how, I think it's verse 12. And Yahuwah said to Moses, stretch out your hand over Egypt so that the locusts swarm over the land and devour everything growing in the field and everything left by the hail. Like, I gave you a chance. Y'all was like, I left the wheat in the spelt. That because you hardened your heart and you know it's me and you know I'm the one and you know I'm the one that rules the earth. I had my servant Moses tell you. So now I got to send a locust that's going to eat up everything that the hail didn't get. And it's like when Yah has us under a season where he's chastising us or he's trying to get us to repentance, and instead of seeing his mercy that he hasn't literally taken our lives or literally stripped everything from us, you know, we miss that. And we hunker down more on being hardened. Kind of like we talked about last week, the word harden in Hebrew and the word glory in Hebrew look exactly the same, except for the word glory has one extra letter. And Yah was showing me that he's like, at the end of the day, my hand is on everybody. He showed me this. So I had this vision where I was seeing like a giant hand over like everybody. Everybody had a hand over them, right? And it's like at any moment, like it's like the hand is your judgment. Or either you can stay under the hand willingly and be transformed, or it's going to be looming over you for the time of your judgment. But at the end of the day, his hand is over you. His hand is over every single person. It's up to our hearts to decide if we want his glory or we want to be crushed by the judgment. You can only have two options. He said, I lay before you life and death. Which one? Which one you choosing? Because there's only two options. There's no in between. And so when I saw that vision of like his hand over us, literally he said he stretched out his hand been stretched out over Egypt. Egypt just kept choosing to harden itself in receiving the judgment, the plagues. If they would have just been like, okay, fine, you can let him go, y'all would have been like, okay, cool, I'll give you some, relief. But that's not what they wanted. And I also want to talk about the going back and forth that that Pharaoh was having with Moses when he was like, okay, I'll let you go, but like you can't take the women and children. And then when Moses got direct about, no, everybody has to leave. He was about to let just the men go and the livestock go, but Pharaoh said, Yahuwah be with you if I let you go, along with your women and children. He was like, it was like, what? He was like, clearly you are bent on evil because Moses wants to take the women and the children. Moses is saying, Yahuwah has called us to have full deliverance, total freedom. What you say, Terry? Full wholeness, complete wholeness. And Pharaoh's like, I'm gonna give you partial wholeness. That's what happens when you want to stay in Babylon, when you want to stay in Egypt, when you want to stay in religion, when you want to stay in Christianity, you get partial wholeness. And a lot of us have seen that. If you've grown up in religion, you've had partial wholeness. And we're saying, Yah has full wholeness for you, but you got to come out of this system. You got to come out of Christianity. You got to come out of the church. You got to come out of this mindset of that America's going to save you. You got to come out of Babylon. If you want full wholeness, you have to come out. Because Pharaoh in Egypt and America in church, they're going to give you partial wholeness. They're going to give you a little bit of freedom, but they don't have the full picture. They don't have 100% of it because they're not walking in spirit and in truth. And so Pharaoh was like, I'll give you, you can go, the men can go, and the sheep and the cattle and all the flocks can go, so you can do your festival to Yahuwah and make a slaughtering. But Moses is like, no, everybody.
Because it's almost like he was going to let him go, but then you want to keep the next generation. I'll let you come out, but then I'm not. Because the children is the next generation, but the women can birth a new generation. So, you're not playing funny. He doing the negotiations or whatever. Mm-hmm. But that's the compromise, right? Like, and with the partial deliverance, I'm gonna offer you a little something and then see if you're gonna take that, know, because now you're still not thinking about your value. I just want out. So maybe somebody getting out is better than nobody getting out.
Right. And I think it shows again how Yah loves, like, okay, so me and Latanya talked about this a little bit, but like Yah loves his daughters. Yah loves his daughters. He loves the women that he created. And so Pharaoh literally saying, no, only the men can go out and worship Yahuwah. But Moses is like, no, the women too, the children too. Like you thought Yah was just gonna come for the men? I'm coming for my daughters. I'm coming for the kids. Everybody, every generation, everything. Latanya, was you gonna say something?
No, I was just gonna mess with Terry. She was preaching.
She was. And it says after he said that, after Moses was just like, oh, you want the kids and the women too? It says that Moses and Aaron were driven out of Pharaoh's presence. You know how it's like you try to talk to somebody who may have like some size and they like get their security to bum rush you out of there. That's what like after Moses and Aaron was just like, no, everybody. It's like, get this man out of here. Because Moses and Aaron been kind of going up to Pharaoh freely, like, hey, this the word of Yah. This is what you need to do next. And once Moses and Aaron were just like, no, everybody, the women and the kids too. It was like security, like they was just cut it off, no conversation.
That's like that video you sent me with the Joel Osteen and that lady.
Yeah, man, that's just like that. She was giving that man, you're not teaching, you're not teaching the true gospel. They called security on that lady so quick. She's like, I flew all the way from the UK to tell you that you're not teaching the gospel. You're not teaching the true God. You need to be teaching people about sin, about repentance. You know, you just being a motivational speaker, like God is not happy. They security, they done put her out. That's how it be. And so that's after that happened, that's when Moses sent the locusts, you know, by Yah, and they ate everything up that was left by the hail. And it was at this point, it says that they covered all the ground until it was black. Like, you know how many locusts that is? To be like a sheet. Talked about that before with the flies. It said the flies were so bad that it literally covered the ground. Or was it the gnats? Either way, it's nasty, right? I don't care if it's a fly or a gnat. It's so many of y'all covering the ground. That's disturbing. And locusts are big. Yeah.
And I was like, if the flies and the gnats covered the ground, you know, they're small. Imagine how many it had to be. They were like a cloud, you know, coming like, well, that's disgusting. Woo, geez. Woo.
That makes me think of like a Marvel movie, like, you know, how it be all the stuff come together to make a hand or whatever. And you're not going to say that that's something supernatural. You're not going to admit that, you know.
Taryn, that's like them dust storms we saw when we was in the desert. See that big cloud of dust come. You know, you can just see it forming.
And you're trying to hurry up and get inside to get away
and
from
it overtakes everything. And even though you go inside and you close the door, the dust is in your computer. It's everywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ooh-wee. And so after that happened, he saw all that was going on and that they devoured everything that was left. And there was nothing. There was literally nothing. All the fruit trees, everything was gone. Here go Moses quickly summoning Pharaoh. You was quick to put me out, but now you quick to call me back. And he's just like, I have sinned against Yahuwah your Elohim and against you. Now forgive my sin at once more and pray to Yahuwah your Elohim to take this deadly plague away from me. Here we go. And so verse 18, Moses then left Pharaoh and prayed to Yahuwah, and Yahuwah changed the wind to a very strong west wind, which caught up the locusts and carried them into the Red Sea. Not a locust was left anywhere in Egypt, but Yahuwah had hardened Pharaoh's heart, and he would not let the Israelites go. Like, imagine seeing that, like you said, like a movie. All these locusts devouring everything. Here come a big old wind, just catch them up, throw them out. He did the same thing with the flies, the same thing with the gnats. Like, Pharaoh and Egypt are not new to seeing this. They just don't care. Again, they just wanted that respite. They wanted that relief for a moment, but they didn't really want real change. That's what we talked about, being careful who you pray for. Some people, they just want you to pray for them so they won't be under the judgment or chastisement, but they really don't want to change their life. They really don't want to change their ways. They just don't want to feel the judgment anymore. Like, oh, the hand of Yah is heavy on me. Please pray for relief. And Yah's like, nope, don't pray for them. I'm telling you now. Because a lot of times we step in. I think we talked about this during Shavuot when I was talking to Desiree, and we were like, there's going to come a time where Yah's going to say, stop praying for them because I need to do something in them. And I don't need you interceding for them because I'm doing a crushing that's going to bring them to repentance. And every time you pray for their relief, I listen to you because the prayers of the righteous availeth much. And I relent on what I was doing to try to bring them to repentance. And it sometimes it's hard for us to watch when Yah's hand is heavy on somebody and they going through it, and Yah's like, don't pray for them. Pray my will be done. That's all you get to pray. Just pray.
That's like the scripture, casting your pearls to swine. You know, you over here, they don't want the whole complete deliverance, but like you said, they want the relief. Just let me be able to breathe, you know. But we know when we're on that wheel and when you're in that rotisserie, you don't get to jump off. You don't come out. You got to stay in there until you're refined, until he's made you into who he needs you to be.
You nice golden brown. Stay up in there. Stay in that.
Marinate.
In that rotisserie. Oh man. Okay, so this one I broke down the word. So verse 21. It says, then Yahuwah said to Moses, stretch out your hand towards the sky so that darkness spreads over Egypt. Darkness that can be felt. And I was like, ooh, what is that? Like, okay, it's not like a regular darkness, like, oh, it's nighttime. like Taryn be going outside, walking around, doing her little walk. Like that's not darkness that can be felt. That's just, it's dark. No, darkness that feels, that has a feeling to it. So I was like, oh yeah, what is that? That sound like depression. That sound like it's something in the dark. Like, you know, and so I looked up what the word was. And it's, I don't know how to pronounce it, y'all, but it's in the notes. But it's Chet Shin Resh. But it said, like, it breaks down to like, this type of darkness is a misery. It's a sadness. So it's not just it's nighttime. It's not that darkness. It is the looming of sadness, destruction, death, it's sorrow, it's wickedness, it's obscurity, it's confusion. And so I was like, that sounds like the darkness in Genesis 1. Like, you know, in the beginning, the world was without form and void, like it was dark. That's the same word. There was a chaotic, evil disorderness to the darkness. It was a darkness that is, it's vanity. There's nothing in there, can only consume you and destroy you type of darkness. And a lot of times we're living in that type of darkness. We got comfortable living in a sadness, in a misery, in a sorrow, in an obscurity, in a confused state of oppression, to where it literally was. That's why people got to get on depression medication and anxiety medication. They don't have the light of Yah. Yes, an emptiness that's not really empty. It's full of chaos. And so when we're living like that, and Yah's like, let there be light. His commandments are light. His paths are light. His word, his commandments are a light unto our feet. It's a light that pierces the darkness and creates order, but it also creates separation. But Yah's like, I'm sending this darkness on Egypt. Like the chaos, the oppression. And it was for 3 days. Y'all know what that 3, okay? 3 days, 3 nights in the belly of the beast. 3 days, 3 nights in the heart of the earth. 3 days, 3 nights. Yahushua was in Sheol, like getting the keys of death. Like that type of darkness. And so I broke it down. So Chet is to protect, a fence, or an inner chamber. Shin means to destroy or consume. And Resh is a picture of a man, or like the most important person. And so basically this word darkness literally means the protection is destroyed by the most important. So when you are in darkness, is that your protection, your inner chamber has been consumed, is destroyed by the highest. And so if we're living in darkness, it's because we chose to go outside of Yah's protection. So Yah has a covered place for us. Yah has a tabernacle that's full of his light and his radiance and his glory for us. But if we choose to walk off his path, yea, do I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I shall fear no evil. It's death and darkness all around. But if you're on the narrow path, you're walking in the light. You know, you see those movies where it's like darkness, like there's there's like a ramp and it's just like lit up. That's what it's like. But everything else around you is the darkness. But it don't concern you. It don't consume you. It can't touch you. But this type of darkness was all over Egypt. And so that darkness that is felt, it's the same darkness of chaos, disorder, vanity, emptiness, like Gina was saying. And so I wanted to put scriptures on here with that word, that same word, that H28:22 was mentioned, Isaiah 40:45-7. Yah is saying, look, again, Yah orders everything. Nothing gets done without Yah say so. Even this darkness that's sent, Yah sends it. Yah created it and he sent it. Isaiah 45:7. I form the light. This is Yah speaking. Yahuwah saying, I form the light and create darkness. I make peace and create evil. I, Yah, do all these things. That's what I was saying. Like when people say, like, oh, the government created, Yah allowed it. Yah allowed it to happen. Y'all better quit playing with my Elohim like he gonna just let something happen and he didn't know what was gonna happen. Genesis 1:2. And the earth was without form and void, and darkness, the same darkness that Yah said went over Egypt. Darkness, that's that same word, was upon the face of the deep, and the spirit of Elohim moved upon the face of the waters. It's the same darkness. Proverbs 2:13. Who leave the path of uprightness to walk in ways of darkness. We talked about that. When you leave the path of righteousness, of uprightness, of walking in and healing and wholeness and Torah and the light that is the word, that is Yahusha, that is the word made flesh. When you leave that path, you choose to walk in the way of this darkness. And I said that, and even I was like, dang, I know I put that scripture on there, but like, that's the picture. Choose the path of light, choose the path of Torah, of righteousness. If you get off that, then you automatically veer into walking in darkness. Isaiah had a whole bunch of scriptures where it was using the same word, darkness. But Isaiah 5:2, woe to them that put darkness for light and light for darkness. That's that same verse that says evil for good and sweet for bitter. Right. Y'all is saying y'all call the chaos, the destruction, the death, the wickedness, the confusion, you call that righteousness? Woe to you, because my paths are light, my paths are healing, are life, and you're telling people that my path is darkness? You're telling my people that if they walk in Torah, if they walk in life and righteousness in my commandments, that it's destruction, that it's ignorance, because darkness also is ignorance. Woe to you. So I was just like, dang, a darkness that can be felt. Like, that was just so, like, when I read that, I mean, I read it before, but I read that, I was like, dang, like, there really is wisdom in understanding Yah's ways, because when you start to feel heavy, and this is some encouragement, when you start to feel heavy or oppressed or burdened, or you feel yourself slipping into a depression, hold on now, that's darkness territory. Yah's called us to walk in the light. So let's reevaluate when we feel ourselves slipping into those moments where you're feeling miserable, or you're feeling sadness, or sorrow and destruction, or confusion. Yah is not the spirit of confusion. That's not him. That's not him. Yeah. And so again, taking every thought captive, when we start to feel that, we feel that spirit of oppression trying to loom over us, you know it's not Yah. So speak the word, speak the light into your situation, into your feeling in that moment. And that's just reminds myself. I told you, I was like, ooh, what was me for like a month? I was just all up in my little misery. I was like, I was all up in my darkness, just like, oh, I'm sad. Oh, I'm miserable. Oh, woe is me. Y'all was like, girl, if you don't get up, like, it was like, get up. You have life. You're choosing to sit in your misery. Don't choose death. And I was like, okay, let me get my tail up. I know better, And so, but it's just it's a reminder. A righteous man falls 7 times, but he gets back up, And so it said it covered Egypt for 3 days. No one could see anyone else or move about for 3 days. Yet all the Israelites had light in the places where they lived. You guys said, y'all already told us that he was gonna make that distinction and separation. We talked about how distinction and separation is deliverance. It's synonymous with redemption. Separation, when Yah says I'm gonna make a separation and distinction between the Egyptians and my people and Israel. When we broke those words down last week, those words literally break down to meaning redemption, salvation, deliverance. You're not going to get redemption, salvation, and deliverance unless you're separated and you're distinct. That's being set apart. They go together. You can't be set apart in the covenant and not be redeemed. Like they go together. If you're saying you're redeemed, that means you're in the covenant. If you're saying you receive salvation and deliverance, that means you're distinct, that you're separated, that you don't look like the rest of the world, that you're not acting like the rest of the world. They're synonymous. And so Israel had light, and so again, Pharaoh summoning Moses. He's like, go worship Yah. Go worship Yah. Even women and children may go with you. Only leave your flocks and herds behind. He's still trying to negotiate. He's still trying to, he's like, okay, I said the men could go and the flocks could go, but now I'm saying the men and the women can go, but the flocks can't go. You don't get it. And it's just like, I want to relate this to now spiritually. That's like when we're talking to like our family, our friends who may still be in the illusion of any like religious structure, Christianity specifically. It's just like I saw this one ministry, they were keeping Passover and all the feasts, but they were still celebrating Christmas and Easter. And it's just, that's what this looks like. It's like, oh, okay. we're gonna worship Yah according to Torah. We're gonna keep the Passover and unleavened bread and but we still gonna keep, we still gonna keep our Christmas and our Easter. It's like, no, 100% fully in committed. You can't say yeah to this and no to that. You can only say yes to Yah. And I'm just like, yeah, this is where we are, where people are just like, oh, we're gonna also, yes, like come back to covenant. We're gonna keep Torah, we're gonna keep the feast days, but you still haven't let go of your pagan worship. You thought that you could just add it to, when Yah's asking you to remove it and then let him teach you his ways. That's what this looks like. You're trying to bargain. You still want to stay in your bondage, but you say you want freedom. Everything got to go. Yeah, lukewarmness, everything has to go. Everything has to be submitted before Yah. Everything has to leave Babylon. Everything has to leave the mental construct of what you thought was okay to just do exactly 100% what Yah's saying. Because Yah's like, no child left behind for real. Not just in policy, but in everything. Spiritually, in generation. What's this? Deuteronomy 30:19. I have called the heavens and the earth as witnesses today against you. I have set before you life and death, the blessing and the curse. Therefore, you shall choose life so that you live, both you and your seed, your generation, your offspring, everybody. So here we go. Pharaoh still doing a thing. But Moses said, you must allow us to have sacrifices and burnt offerings to present to Yahuwah our Elohim. Our livestock must go with us. Not a hoof is to be left behind. Because we're going to use some of them to worship Yahuwah our Elohim. And until we get there, we will not know what we are to use to worship Yahuwah. Again, they've been kind of disconnected from Yah for a long time, but like they've been separated from Yah, but they, they're not divorced from Yah. They still Yah's people, but they don't know what Yah requires of them. That's why Yah said everything. You got to give me everything because you don't know what's required of you to serve me. Ooh, that's a word in itself. Yah saying everything that you got, your whole life, give it to me. Because when you give it all to me, I'm going to sift it out on what I want you to use to worship me and things that I don't ever want you to pick up again. But you got to actually give me everything. Now I say, oh, I give you this, but like I didn't never surrendered that over there. Like that over there, I don't want y'all to touch that. And that's that inner chamber, those secret parts in our hearts that we didn't even know that were like, oh yeah, I'll do this, this, and this for y'all. But like that, I can never. I was like, no, that could never. I want that too. And that's why it's a broken in contrast where you have to become dust before him. Like everything, every particle in your being has to be on display because you don't know what he's going to use. The thing that you think is too dirty for him to use, he's like, no, I want everything. I'm going to use that right there so you can worship me.
That's good. I know I pray, Abba, there's no part of me that you don't have access to. You have access to every part of me. And, I was going through a situation with my son and, he was like, I got that too, that too, I love him better than you. I can care for him better than you, and so, that thing gets real, real personal, and so, I just praise him, for just, breaking us down. We say these things, but when you're walking through it, we've been talking about this a lot, Samaria. We know all these precepts and we know what the word says. We have the information and the knowledge, but to apply it to your natural everyday life, to walk it out and to live it, is something totally different. And it's like, okay, that script just came alive to me. This is the work. This is the deeper thing that you're calling me to. Okay, I think getting the knowledge and the information and knowing this, that's the surface stuff. That's the basics. That's what he's called us to do anyway. Now I'm calling you to the deeper things. That stuff that I'm gonna need you to apply it to your life. And let's see how, let's walk this thing out, in spirit and in truth.
Yep, that's it right there. That's this, like, we talked about, like, yes, it's important. We need to know the Torah. We need to be reading the first 5 books to really get that word. Like that's what all the disciples were going off of. That's what the prophets always referred to. This is the word. This was the word made flesh. These first 5 books are Yahusha. These first 5 books, this is Yahusha. This is Yah's salvation. This is the thing that was made flesh. And so, yes, study it, read it, learn it, absorb it. But it really goes to work when you start to apply it. And that's when it's like there's the law, but then there's the spirit of the law, which is you're doing the law. The spirit of the law is never going to cause you to walk outside of covenant. The spirit, walking in the spirit of the law is never going to cause you to break the law or be lawless. Let's get that very clear. Okay. I know y'all all understand that, right? The spirit of the law is never going to have you walk contrary to the law. The spirit of the law calls you to the deeper things that the law is obviously saying, but it speaks to the heart posture of it all. I'm going to give an example where, like the command, one of the commandments says, honor your father and your mother. But in Torah, there's a provision that says, if your son dishonors or disrespects or is evil to their parents, then you can stone him, right? The spirit of the law is, we shouldn't even have an if-then statement in the Torah. The spirit of the law is, if you're walking in the spirit, you're going to honor your father and your mother. So this portion of, if your son or your daughter is disrespectful, you can stone them, that wouldn't even be there. Because the spirit of the law is that you're already walking in obedience. So you shouldn't need the provision on how to handle disobedient children. It's just there because he knows that we're a work in progress. It's just there because he knows there's going to be some people that murder, that steal, that covet. Why, if we're such a holy nation, do we need provisions on what happens when a woman commits adultery? The spirit of the law is that you're not committing adultery. The spirit of the law is you are committed and faithful and devoted in your covenant. Why is there a provision for when there's a false prophet if we're all walking in the spirit of the law? Because he knew that it wasn't being written on our hearts. He knew that our ancestors weren't really about it. Like he knew our ancestors weren't really devoted to be in a love, to be in love, to be in a deep, I won't even say love affair, but like to be passionately overrun by the love of Yah. He knew that we didn't really have that heart posture to be really in love with him like that. So he had to give us permissible laws.
Yeah, that sin contaminated us.
Perfect. Huh?
I said that sin contaminated us. Yes. He made us perfect. He gave us laws, rules, and statutes at the beginning. Adam and Eve knew what they were supposed to be doing. Mm-hmm. But then once they sinned, now he's got to come in and put all these provisions in for, all this other stuff. Not even what he intended. He didn't even intend for us to have all the knowledge that they got when they sinned. Therefore, so it just, man.
Yeah. Yep. It's even like that when like the prophets are speaking and they say, because this and that happened, therefore I'm going to do X, Y, and Z. It's like Huda said something. You need to know what the therefore is there for.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And I love that because it's just like we have to read it in context. It's like the Torah is important because it teaches us how to deal with each other and how to handle ourselves, but also more importantly, how to love Yah. Right. And I forgot how we even got to this portion about how just Yah wants everything. But man, we have to have the foundation, before we can get to walking it out. That's why it says work out your salvation with fear and trembling, because the thing with it wasn't that the Pharisees were Pharisees is a problem. Like that's not a problem, right? It's not a problem that you keep the law. The problem is that you didn't allow the spirit of Yah that is in the Torah to work the inner transformation. Mm-hmm. To work their inner healing. It was just topical. It was like, oh, I showed up to Passover. Oh, I showed up to Shabbat. Oh, I showed up to learn, but your heart wasn't really in it. We talked about last week. It's like that going on a date with somebody. You're there, but you're on your phone the whole time while they're trying to talk to you. And you're just like, yeah. Mm-hmm. That's what we look like when we just do the motions of being obedient, but you're not really there in your heart. That's why he said, I hate your festivals. I hate your new moons. I hate your Sabbaths. Because our ancestors were showing up to the festivals, but we were just waiting for it to be over so we could go back to our idols and our distractions. That's why he said it. He didn't hate it because he established it. How he gonna hate what he established? He don't hate the feast days. He don't hate the fact that we're keeping Shabbat. He hates the fact that we're keeping it and we're not really, we don't really want to be there. Like spiritually, we don't really want him to get into the deep crevices of our hearts and our minds and our souls to do the real work as to why I want you to meet with me, because I love you. And do you love me? Like, because you acting like this a chore. You know, I know, like, I be watching like TV relations, like, do you want to be in this relationship? Because you acting like you don't want to be here. That's how y'all be looking at us sometimes. Like, do you really, like, you acting like you don't want to be with me? You're acting like I forced you to love me. Okay. He wants people who worship him in spirit and in truth. We want to be there spiritually. We want to be there in the truth of it all.
Right. I think once they understand the purpose of the law and stop trying to see it as a burden or an excuse, but people don't realize that the law actually heals you physically, mentally, and spiritually. I've learned so much about myself in this walk because I'm honoring the law as much as, don't get me wrong, it takes time, but the more I humble myself, the more I be obedient. I was like, okay, now you got to do the next one. Now let's get to the next one. And every time I conform, I realize, dang, I ain't eating pork, but guess what? All those sicknesses are gone. Wait, hold on, wait. Eat more herbs and what? Girl, okay. I like your dietary laws. Why America ain't talking about this? Oh, because they trying to profit. Okay. People got to understand what the importance of these laws are and how they are to benefit us. And then they would then, not see it as a burden. But we got to get it. Yeah, yeah.
So I had made a video earlier this week after I talked to Latanya about, it kind of goes into like the prophetic dream y'all gave me about like the bride that was like scarred because she was adding on these different ways of getting ready. And it kind of clicked for me when we were talking about how like everything is spiritual. And until we understand that, just like Hinduism, just like Taoism, all these different spiritual journeys that people go on to try to get inner healing and peace, Yah is like, that's me.
Exactly. But the only thing is,
that's
it
Torah.
lasts long. Yes, yes.
I like, that's Torah. So like, because Yah was showing me, he's like, we cannot separate Yah's, we can't separate. Okay, so yes, Torah is spiritual. Everything, like, this is our spirituality, right? I want to break it down like Torah is our spirituality. The same way that all these other nations have their spiritual systems like Hinduism, blah, 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 and they try to get inner healing and peace, all that jazz. And we even got believers running over there trying to learn ways to find inner peace. Yah's like, if you would just become in covenant with me, this is your spirituality. The customs, the standards, the laws, the statutes, the telling of time and how Passover and unleavened bread and Day of Atonement, all of these are laying the foundation of what healing looks like and how to stay in a forever posture of receiving your healing and staying in a sense of peace and equilibrium. But because of religion and because of Catholicism and the church and all these different denominations, there's this idea that you can separate Yah from the spiritual practices and still get healing and wholeness. No, Torah is our spirituality. Like, and I know that like that might sound crazy to some other people, but it's just like, no, you cannot separate the healing power of Yahuwah from the system that he put in place.
Exactly.
Because they're the instructions. That's what Torah is, the instructions. We look at it and we try, the law, I can't follow all the law. But what is it? They're just instructions. And you give your children instructions so they don't get hurt. If we look at it in the natural, secular world that we're in, they're instructions to keep us safe and to keep us on the path and to lead us back to the Father. It's simple. It's to us. I mean, I just feel like it's just so simple and people make it so difficult.
Right.
When I first, go ahead.
Oh no, you're fine. I was just saying that I had got offended a little bit because they tried to say that fasting and spirituality and all that stuff and healing came from Japan, came from Japanese, and I was like, no, it didn't. Y'all been telling us to do this for a long time, but nobody don't want to listen. Everybody trying to take his credit.
When I first got saved, like super, super baby, I'm talking about not even going to church yet. And just when the spirit was revealing things to me those first 6 months, I was realizing, because, coming from witchcraft and just like every other practice under the sun, like somebody said, trying to find this sense of spirituality and peace and wholeness or whatever. When I started reading the word, I was like, every single thing that they done made up or that says it's spiritual is in the Bible, is based on the Bible. Like they got it from the Bible, like the crystals, all of it. They just took the word and perverted it into something else. And I'm like, it all starts with Yah, like Yah. I was just like, literally like somebody said, I was like, Yahusha, Yah is the only form of spirituality, quote unquote, that you need. Like it's literally all here. Like, what are we doing? That was literally one of the first revelations I had. And I was just like, wow.
Yeah. Because we're looking in all the wrong places for something to fill this void in us. And it's Yahuwah.
Yes.
And he's calling out to us. And he was like, I'm right here. I'm right here. I'm not
everybody wants to find something else. Everybody will search
like,
everything.
Present,
Everyone will do everything else except read the word.
Yes, absolutely. Desi?
I just wanted to jump in and say my 2 cents, but when I was talking to Ashir, I was telling her, like, when I'm ministering to somebody, I tell them, like, he's our father, just like we are parents. And so his word to me is like a meal he has prepared, and it's gonna have everything on there that we need. But in the world, they want to pick and choose what they're gonna eat off of a plate. And you gotta think to yourself, like, when your parents prepared you a meal and they prepared you a plate and it had everything that you needed on there, you didn't get to tell them what you was gonna eat off of that plate.
Right.
You was gonna eat everything off the plate. And so you gotta think the same way when you're thinking about our Father. Like, you can't pick and choose, like somebody was saying. You can't celebrate his feast days and still wanna do Christmas and Easter. Like, that's not what he put on the plate.
Right. Yeah.
It goes back to that.
That's good. Talk about the plate.
That was very
good.
It made me think too of like it's a number of things. It's the history of it, because whenever something don't work, I mean, most of the time you say read this word for yourself, right? But you see a little commercial or you see a podcast or something, you're like, oh, okay, I know that's in the Bible, but you didn't read it yourself specifically in 1 or 2 words or change the context of something, right?
Absolutely.
So you're like, oh, it sounds familiar, or maybe grandmama said, or maybe so and so said, but it's like you've been conditioned this certain way, and you trying to do right, your heart's right, so it's not totally wrong, but because you still not rooted in that word to kind of, and not just read for yourself, but the revelation of it, right? To get in your own relationship and the revelation of it. But it made me think I had my twins like 2.5 months early or whatever, but my one, I nursed her and she would projectile, right? Like, but you know how everybody is with a little baby. They want to feed the baby. So it's good old Thanksgiving, a good 100 people at the house, whatever the case is. And somebody fed Jayla a little, lick this cheesecake off my finger. Well, she is just throwing up. And I knew somebody fed her because she wouldn't even take like I would supplement every now and then, but for the most part, I nursed. But as grandmama was praying, it's hot, folks want to eat. And grandmama saying, get off her devil and this and that. And the whole time I'm sitting up there like, y'all fed her. Ain't nobody had like, she really is 6 months, like gestationally. She ain't even a 9-month, like whatever. But y'all over here, like, lick this potato salad and do that, y'all just snuck and fed her. But just the whole concept of that moment, you thinking that it's XYZ, like you were saying, Octavia, like you're thinking it's, why did this food make my stomach hurt? Or why did, and I told you that, Samaria. Like, look, that type 2 diabetes, I'm greedy. That's how I got it. I was sitting around eating this many cookies every day and whatever else. Oh, it's hereditary, it's this, it's this, it's this. It's bad habits. Like, it's some things that I could clean up and do right. I can eat better, clean up, whatever. But it's an indication to say, hey, take care of your temple better. You're not doing some stuff right, right? I don't believe I was cursed. I believe I need to make better choices, like, that type of thing or whatever. But you got a whole a system of everybody telling you, oh, so and so had heart disease, and that's that. And I'm like, so it ain't the pig's feet, the possum, it ain't the rabbit in the pot with the ramen noodles and the 10 different salts. And I mean, I'm just saying, when everybody eats like that, everybody does that. And then we'll say that, like, oh, so and so had it. And then the doctors come in and they reinforce that too. What's your family history? What's that this? And I'm like, no, that's environmental. We've been greedy.
Yes, absolutely.
And we've been sedentary, and we sit up and we eat some more, and we eat, and then we take a pill, and then we eat some more, But like all those bad habits, all those things that self-control, right?
Yes.
Discipline, fasting. How about knowing that maybe that just don't agree with you, like just don't do that. But just not being right, like how we've been taught, if we really stop and listen, right? But then you got to break that system up from everybody you're around, because when you come out of it, now your family, you got to wait for them to believe that. I mean, we start detoxing certain stuff out the house, but it is hard. You got to wait for, because I'm gonna tell you,
Because we've
my
been
mother
conditioned to think that all of this is normal, where it's not normal. It's common, but just because it's common doesn't mean it's normal.
That's
exactly.
right, Gina.
Yeah, we've been programmed. Definitely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and that's how it starts. And even with all the denominations or the different church, they want to say it's the same doctrine, it's just execution wise, but when something didn't work right, they changed it to be their way, right? So if you want to run and jump and shout, you go Pentecostal, full gospel. But you go Catholic, you 30 minutes in and out. You know what I'm saying? Like, I mean, but that's what it was. This appeals to this group, this appeals to this group, and this sort of thing. And then you just like, but coming into it, we think that, well, I know who I serve, but it's that execution and submission part, like you said, like peeling it off. And I'm saying, like, man, I think Latanya and I, we've talked enough, and she's just reinforcing to me, like, don't have the condemnation that you're not where you're supposed to be. Just, you're headed in the right direction. Like, we're working on it. It's progress and stuff, because you'll sit and just be in a whole mess, and it's like, oh my gosh, I just can't do it all. But where you're going and you're confessing, like, that's my confession, like, continue to do the work in me, continue to show me and help me release those things. And because again, then I do it for myself, but then I'm compromising with my family. It's like, still the next step. What's the next step around that?
Yeah, because God is not no genie in a bottle. Not at all.
That brings me to my next point. Now, I mean, we're still in the vein of like obedience and whatnot, and the fullness of it. I know in a lot of Christian circles and religious spaces, there's just like this idea that you don't have to fight and ask Yah to help you have deliverance from strongholds. I've heard some teachings from people in religion saying that, like, once you give your life to Jesus, you don't have, like, you're not cursed. There's no demons that you have to fight. And I was like, hold on. Because once I actually gave my life to Yahusha in fullness, that's when the war really started.
Absolutely.
When those unclean spirits started to manifest themselves, when I wanted to break free from them, it was known that, like, oh snap, these things got some hooks in me. These things have access to me. I need to seal up some breaches. Yes, the salvation is free, but the deliverance takes work. and discipline. And when we tell people that they don't have to do any work or there's no discipline involved for them to be free from their strongholds and their demons and their unclean spirits, you're setting people up to just live in a lukewarmness of just like, oh no, I'm good, but you're not going to warfare for nothing. And it's because we've made the testimony of Yahusha like it's lazy. Again, it's an antichrist, it's a false Christ. It's literally like the whole picture of Christianity and Jesus, that's the false Christ, that's the antichrist. Because Yahusha is saying, do all that the Pharisees tell you to do, but be better than them. So there's this idea that there's a work that has to be done. That's why he says, I'm gonna this work that I started in you till its completion, he started it. That means we're constantly doing some kind of work is being done. You still gotta put your hand to the plow. There's still there's a wrestling. If you're not wrestling, you're not Israel. And I'm not saying that you don't have shalom while you're wrestling, that there's not peace, that you're always gonna be wrestling, but I'm saying that there's still we have to put this flesh into subjugation of the spirit. And I feel like that's such a false teaching to tell people that like once you accept Christ, that there's no work that has to be done for you. Like you don't have to go to war with generational treaties that have been made unbeknownst to you. I feel like that's dangerous to teach that or to say that to someone if you know they've come from a line of maybe you got delivered but your family came from a line of witches or warlocks, and you're telling me that you don't think that you're gonna have to go to war with the things that you made agreements with, you know. And I know we talked about this when we first started the call about, you know, going to war, praying, fasting, slaying demons in the spirit, cutting off heads, like stepping on the head of the serpent. If you don't think that that's what we're called to do once you say yes.
Yeah. Because saying yes is just the first step. That's just the first step. You just begun now.
But there's a whole ministry that keeps people stuck right there though, because that's how you check the block. I mean, I don't cheat, I don't smoke, I don't, you know, whatever. I take care of my family, and I think that's it. That's like that bare minimum. What did you say last week about pat you on the back? You know, like you did your job. So still in my head, I'm like, if you're striving for a closer relationship, you have to have things revealed to you, whether it's not whether, because I would say it's maturity. You start off on the milk, like, you know, and then as you see different things, well, maybe now you realize it's compromise. Maybe now you realize it's discipline, you know, but like there will be things that are revealed to you in those. So you got to grow. You can't just sit. I go to church every Sunday. I'm doing, you know, like we have that, the worldly thing to say, no, you know, I'm good. I'm not over there doing all that. That's how we judge.
We just scratched the surface, because you just scratched the surface. When you stop doing all that, he was like, okay, now you're doing the basic things that I've called you to. Now I'm calling you to deeper. So you can't stay there. All right. Yeah, you made a decision for me. Okay. But you know, that's good. That's what I told you. I told you to choose life. This is choosing life. Now, this is how you keep your life. Okay. Do you want some rewards when you make it into your Shamayim? Okay. I'm going to need you to put some work in.
It had me thinking about Latanya when you said that, because I'm teaching my son the number line from the negatives and the positives, and you get to zero. So like we're in the world, in the worldly secular world, living that way. We're in the negative. Then when we finally come to Yah, we're back at zero. So he's like, all right,
yes, exactly.
Now let's keep going into the positive.
Right.
That's a beautiful analogy.
Yes. That's how Abba got me in. That's exactly how he got me in. I had to write that list down. I'll never forget 2020. I was reflecting, you know, family was passing, and I just started like on my spirit just telling me to write down you know, like the negatives about myself. Because I kept thinking, nah, I'm not no bad person, man. That the negative list outweighed the good. I didn't have anything barely on the good side, the positive side. That convicted me really big. But people fail to understand that that list doesn't just consist of the physical. I had to write down the spiritual things too, in a sense of, jealousy, or like, rejection, or argumentative, or, you know what I'm saying? Like people don't think about those things. The things that people don't see also has to be included in that negative list. My list was long.
And that's why it says to examine yourself daily. Because again, that's where, okay, so back to the whole spirituality thing. This is spirituality. The Torah is literally what the world likes to call it, metaphysical. It's not just, oh, I'm not eating pork. It's that I'm disciplined. I'm doing what the Heavenly Father has told me to do. Okay, I'm keeping Passover, but do I understand that Passover is not just about eating a lamb and saying that, like, I remember what he did in Egypt, or I received the blood that Yahusha is the lamb that the Most High Yah sent to redeem us. It gets deeper,
yes,
and that's the beauty of Yahuwah's spirit. Like his whole setup in the first 5 books, it's deeply spiritual, and like I was saying, it's healing, it's transformative, and it gets deeper and deeper the more that you walk in it. And it's like the way that Torah, the spirit of the law, is set up to where you have to reckon with the ugly parts of yourself. The spirit of the law is you have to reckon with your uncleanness. You have to be held accountable for what you have done. You have to see your filth in order to confess it and to put it down so you won't pick it back up again.
Exactly. Spiritual maturity.
That's what Paul's saying. Like, if I didn't have the law, I wouldn't know what sin was. This is supposed to this is a mirror to be like, oh dang, I was disrespectful to my parents growing up. I know my teenage years was, they could have stoned me. Ooh, yeah, forgive me for that. It keeps you in a state of humbleness. So when you're reading his word, and I think it's so funny because people think Yahusha came to make it easier. Really, his words made it harder. I've been in Luke and Matthew lately, and I'm like, God, no, like
that's why they gave us that counterfeit so-called Jesus.
Right, because Yahusha was about it. He was like, look, if you can't let go of mother, brother, husband, wife, sister, brother, cousin for me, you ain't worthy of the kingdom. And we're like, oh no, but love your family. Not to the point where you're not gonna walk in obedience. Cut them off. Cut them off for me. And it's just like, oh, my husband? Yes, your husband. If it comes to that, I'm saying pray for him right now, because you know your righteousness may bring him to righteousness. But hey, don't let that man drag you back to them pork rinds. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Like, and it's just like I was telling last week, we talked about Luke about that. You don't get a pat on the back for being obedient. Like Yahusha's parable in Luke 17 had me on the floor, y'all. He was like, you're a servant. Yeah. All your word should be is I'm an unprofitable servant. I've only done my duty.
Yep, unprofitable.
And we got Israelites out here, natural branch and grafted in, running around being all prideful because they're keeping Torah. Baby, that's what you're supposed to do.
Exactly. It's deeper than that.
It's so much deeper. And y'all, that if you haven't read Luke 17, y'all know the parable about the mustard seed. Y'all know the parable about the if you touch these little ones, it's better for you to be thrown into the sea. And y'all know that one, right? But there's a parable in there towards the end, or like the middle, where he literally is giving this analogy of like, you don't get a hand clap for keeping the commandments. That's your duty.
Yes.
That's what you're supposed to do.
Yes.
Why are you boasting in the fact that you're keeping the commandment? That's why Paul was like, y'all boasting in the law, like you're just doing the duty of man. Like that's the whole duty of man, is to keep the commandments of the Most High Yah. You don't get celebration in a parade because you came back to being obedient. Congratulations, you made it at level 0. Like Gina was saying, finally you have arrived. You said yes. Okay, now let's get to work.
Look, like Mario Brothers, you have passed to the next level. See, there's a next level. There's always a next level. And I guess for me, I'm more conscious of, I don't sit and be like, oh my gosh, I got all this junk I need to work on, but I am still bringing it like I got some stuff to work on, right? Not from like a bad place, but like I want to be better, the striving to be better. But I'm not sitting up here saying I'm better than this person and that person. The first thing I would think of is like, man, like I'm just now learning this. Like I do a reflection of like, I mean, been out here like as an adult, really trying to, but now seeing it through a different lens of studying and relationship. I'm still more focused on like, how can you sit there and sell it like, oh, I need a pat on the back. From what? I mean, like you said, from what? I would never think the pat on the back. I would think like, I hope I got enough to get up tomorrow and be stronger and take those tools and use them to continue the fight, right? To do the next thing. Because it's a whole new level. You rank up, you pass this test.
It gets harder and harder.
Yeah. And I just think the grace of or the comfort now is that 10 years ago, 20 years ago, I would have been severely depressed, wanting to shut down and stuff. And now I'm like, okay, what does this mean? I know that I could go in a closet. I know I could call a sister. I know I could get on my face. Like, this is like, I know, okay. And then maybe if he's silent, he's still going to bring me through. Like, I know, like, is this for me? Or I got to do some stuff. Is it for the family? Is it to break the stronghold? But you have to know that, like, it's a bigger me. But I'm thankful for those things being revealed. Because that's what I want to know. I want to know so that my children's children, the bloodline, and much deeper. And I didn't pray like that when I was 20, right? Like so the maturity, the growth, the relationship. So I know it's okay, even if it's a hard day. Not necessarily. I told Tanya I was listening to a song when my husband was in the hospital when his defibrillator went off. But they were supposed to do an x-ray on him. They didn't load a CAT scan because the metal device, they had to do something different, right? But because they messed up the paperwork on it when he was supposed to go get it done, he didn't. 3 days later, they found out he had a blood clot in his neck when they went to go do that. And I was listening to this song, I'm in awe of you, because years ago I would have been, oh my God, just falling all out. But I'm thinking of the revelation because, as much as I was frustrated that this didn't go right, and look at what he saved us from and something else. Because had they did that too, they wouldn't have found the blood clot. You know what I'm saying? Good. So I was like, the maturity or just thinking about right now, I sit with some stuff to say, okay. And I'm so grateful for that relationship.
Demaria and I were talking about this stuff just today.
Yeah, milk, being on milk don't get you that. Being on milk is like you check the block. I went to church this Sunday, right? Like that's the, and then I graduated to I ain't cuss nobody out, and then like they didn't catch these hands, like, because I mean, there was phases to it, but I like the download as I go to him. Now he's saying he can trust me with, because I can't be all flipping out and everything too, having him, my husband, he's the one going through it type of thing, but just the different support part. But I was telling Tanya today that like I realized that I was like, Lord, I listened to that song on repeat for like hours on end. I'm in awe of you, because things that are covered, things unseen, things that I wouldn't even know, right, that he's already gone before to take care of me. And I just was like, that's the type of way that I want to kind of walk with the Torah, and that, and learning to show me deeper, like calling us into deeper.
Right. When I pray, I'm constantly, I've been doing this for a while now, but I constantly pray and ask y'all to show me my sin. Just show me. Like I can, I mean, and it's not to boast, but I've never prayed for like finances or a house, because I saw the dysfunction when I was a child in my family, and seeing in the pulpit, everybody praying for the same thing, but nobody ain't getting what they asked for. It made me realize then, okay, they praying for the wrong thing. So I kept praying for understanding. I kept praying for wisdom. I kept praying for healing. And that's how I know my Elohim is so real, is because everything I prayed for, I was chosen out of so many of us to get the truth. He answered my prayers, even though he didn't come when I asked him to, because I'm sure I wasn't ready at the time, but he came through and he answered my prayers. So I continue to pray for reveal me my wickedness, because I am covered filthy in sin.
Good. Yeah, you pray different when you're mature. You know, because I know growing up in church, you know, we're probably praying for like, oh yeah, help me get this job, help me pass this test. And it's always vanity. It was always surface level things, you know. And I'm like you too, Octavia, sis, like, you know, I'm not financially stable according to the world standards. Y'all know I've been out of a job for about a month, but I'm at the space where I'm just like, yeah, I just want to do your will. Like, keep first the kingdom and everything else will be added. Like, I don't want to pray. Like, even like when I first came into church, I'm like, yeah, like show me my gifts so I can like use it to like, you know, be established, but also I can help other people out and like be financially available to do all these things because you told us to be the lender and not to borrow. You know, we always use that as one of the excuses. I want to be the lender and not to borrow. I want to be able to lend to everybody. And y'all, and it's just like, okay, like what if that lending is not monetary? You know, what if wisdom, yeah, but what if the lending is not the monetary kind? What is like you out here passing out hukama, wisdom, like Terrence just put in the chat. Like you're lending that out, you throwing it out, you giving it away all the time, everywhere. You praying for people, that's that you lend it, you know, because it's not mine anyway. So all I can do is give it to you, lend it to you. He gonna ask for it back some other time, you know, like the parable of the talents. He lent me this talent. I best to do right by multiplying it, giving it out, lend it, however I need to do to make this thing shake. Because he gonna come back and he gonna come from collecting it. He gonna collect. But it's just like, man, really stepping into the deeper things these last couple of years, you know. And I think, you know, we kind of unintentionally like get to the deeper things of Torah, even when we're just in religion. Just about little things, but like now it's intentional pursuit. That's the beauty of the revelation of that. Like, yeah, you know, like use me as a vessel, break me open, like show me the areas in my heart that don't please you, like, you know, clean me up. I want to be a vessel fit for my Father's use. Like I want to be a golden vessel. You know, I don't want to be wood and stone and get thrown into the furnace. Like you know, and so when we pray those prayers, we are literally inviting the purifying fire into our life. And everybody around us people around you who don't comprehend, who don't have spiritual eyes are looking at you like, dang, everything in your life always like you know, y'all puts me in a lot of trials because he's refining me. A lot of y'all got comfortable in your sins. A lot of y'all got comfortable in your compromise. And so life is good, life is cushiony for you, but you become a vessel of wood.
Or complacency.
You know, and you didn't even ask for the fire. You didn't ask to be purged, to be refined. You avoided every trial and tribulation. You avoided it all under the shelter of your Egypt. Because really you just went into a bondage, but it looked good over there. And so that's why all the parables that Yahushua says make so much sense. Like it's almost impossible for a rich man to enter into the kingdom. Because he already thinks he's there. That man was like, he asked that young boy, the young rich ruler, he was like, what do I need to do to get in heaven? He told him, keep the commandments. All right, so we know Yahushua is not telling nobody not to keep the commandments. And the young man was like, I do that. That's a lot of us in Torah when we first wake up. I keep the commandments. I'm doing this. I keep the feast days. I'm eating clean. You do well. Now sell everything you got and follow me.
Sell everything. Yep.
And now you got
get rid of it.
I don't know about that one. I'm gonna have to walk away sad because I'm not about to give you everything. And that's, you know, that's the deeper. He's like, okay, you do well by keeping the commandments. That's what you're supposed to do. That's why I said you don't get no pat on the back. Good for you. Sell everything. Come follow me.
See, that connects back to like what you said with the plague. Again, one person might not think, maybe there was somebody like, well, they got all that over there because their house is nasty. And then until you realize like you didn't leave no door open, you sweep your house every day and you still got bugs and something that came in, or, you know, because we're all sitting here saying, well, I don't do that and I don't, you know, so, oh yeah, I mean, you know what? I'm very disciplined. I can follow the list of, whoa, why you get to touch my money? Like, hold on now. Like, give it to who? No, they could go to work and get their own too. I mean, we have a problem with that submission, that having control and not letting him clean out the deeper things. There's something like everybody got something hidden up in, it is something.
Right.
Y'all is working on me and my patience. Like I have long suffering, but I don't even think it's, I think it's endurance. For me, it's endurance. For sure. One of them where I'm just like, yeah, I'm tired. I need a break. It's like, girl, get up. Like I told you, I was 30 days. I was like, oh, I just did this big thing for you, Abba. And then when I read Luke 17, that's what snapped me up out of my foolishness. Reading Luke 17 and Yahushua being like, you think you're finna get, no, like you just did what you're supposed to do.
Yeah.
Like, for me, I'm just like, oh yeah, I gave this word and I got fired. And he's like, okay, you did what you're supposed to do. Get up. Like, just because you did a hard thing, I know he's compassionate, he's mercy. He also gives us our time to like heal our wounds. And he also revealed like a lot of hurt in my heart. And he's just like, he revealed like, okay, now you got to get stronger in this because you're not done yet. There's more of this that's going to happen. If this took you down like this, oh baby girl, we got some work to do. Right. Like that's what it revealed in me, that I was just like, these people ain't listening, Abba. I'm done. He was like, no, you're not done. You're just getting started. Like, you got a lot of work. You're going to have to get used to getting a lot of people spitting on you, Samari. And I'm just like, I don't think I want to do that. That's that. Sell everything. Your dignity, your self-esteem, all of it. Give it to me. Let them talk bad about you some more. And I'm just like, nah, that's too much. Ooh, I don't want to sell that. Like, let me have my dignity. Let me have my self-preservation. He was like, no, love, ahava, is not about you trying to preserve yourself.
Yeah, but eventually it will come to us serving ourselves. Like serving, we end up serving ourselves, because if you think about it, we get all the blessings.
Yep. And that was Luke 17. Luke 17 was saying like the servant comes in and the servant's not going to sit down and the master's not going to say, oh, come eat with me now. No, the master's going to say, prepare my meal, stand and watch while I eat my food. And when I'm done, then you can sit down and eat your food. After you serve, then you get to serve. Then you get served.
Exactly.
Y'all's like, you still got serving to do for me. Before you sit down somewhere and pull out your big old steak and lamb.
That's all right.
And that's why if you get a chance to read Luke 17, you all see exactly the parable I'm talking about. It was so good. It was such a reality check. It was such a sobering moment for me. And it got my tail up.
Hallelujah.
Because he still promised you that steak and lamb. I mean, we just saying. So it's part of perfecting your gifting, So
yeah.
Ooh,
well, y'all, I think we're gonna cut it at 11. We'll pick up at 11. That's the plague of the firstborn and also the first Passover.
Oh, it gets serious then.
Yeah, I mean it's been serious, but we're finna get to the nitty gritty, and I think I'm really excited about. I thought I was gonna get to 12 tonight too, but like I'm really excited because in 12, it's gonna talk about how Yah was like celebrating the festival of unleavened bread is literally an ordinance for all your generations, and basically this is a sign. It's gonna be on your forehead, and so like the sealing, the sign, the mark of Yah. And then obviously versus the mark of the beast. Because he's literally like, he reiterates it all the time that keeping this observing Passover and unleavened bread, he said this observance will be for you like a sign on your hand and a reminder on your forehead. So where we have heard that terminology again before, Yah says, this Torah, this law should be as frontless between your eyes. Like basically, let your eye be single, the middle. Frontless between your eyes. What's between your eye? Right here, boom. Well, the world be calling it the third eye, but let your mind's eye be single. Let it be full of light. Let it be full of the word. Let it be full of the instruction of the Most High.
That's the pineal gland.
Yes, it is. Exactly. It is.
And everything that they've been doing in the world to numb us of the. Oh.
Yes. So Yahuwah and Yahusha literally reiterates this. Let your mind's eye be single, the pineal gland, but it has to be full of what? The instruction of Yah.
Yeah.
The world calling it the pineal gland, it's on the third eye. It needs to be full of Torah. At the end of the day.
Right. Yes. Yes. That's
You
where the
know?
wisdom comes.
And it's just like, that's why it's the renewing of your mind. Psalms 119. This word changes minds, it restores. It does all that. It washes us. It washes this part, our mind's eye. The whole entirety of our brain is being reconfigured. But it's not going to be reconfigured just because you said a prayer and you said you believe.
Yes.
To be disciplined, just like we study to get degrees and go to school and get all these skills and learn how to do things. That takes time. It's a lifelong process. But yeah, man, it's beautiful. So literally, everything is spiritual. So we just gotta make sure it's in the right spirit. It's in Yah spirit. It's in this spirituality, and now we're not going out looking for peace and balance in all these other foolish things. You know, get it from here. Get it from the word. So with that, I'm gonna cut the camera and we're gonna pray out.